Okay, yeah, well, let's make a slow start. It's the first panel of today. Quite a mysterious panel, I think, because, well, it's a bit unclear from the description what it is about. I understand that. We will learn. This time there's no problems with the technology because there are no slides. All I got is a bunch of bullet points in front of me. Yeah, prepared them yesterday. Okay, let's start it out officially also. So there's a few things I would like to put in front. Yeah. So this panel is actually in the tradition of sharing experiences, which is always a great thing to do at a summit. Yeah, there was actually a little story in front of it. I mean, I first considered to report about that experience on the Spire in written language, but it got far too long. And then I considered to make an extraordinary voice panel session at the Spire, but I somehow forgot it. And then, yeah, the summit comes up, and I just thought, yeah, let's just do it. And yeah, now we're here. We are here. Yeah, so this is about an inner force unknown, an inner feeling that came to me, but is quite rarely triggered and hard to describe. It is also a very personal matter to me that caused me hours and days of emotional turmoil, and it really gave me a hard time. I think I still don't fully understand it, so maybe this panel can help. But I mean, I contemplated yesterday while I was preparing this panel if it should be recorded at all, because it is so personal. But I think that the story just needs to be told and put out there. So we will do the usual recording and publication, I think. If you got questions, please either put them into the chat and I will read them later and answer them. Or if you want, you can just come on stage later and just ask directly, yeah, or make statements. That's actually what I was thinking about, or what I am hoping for, is to have a discussion after my ramblings, because I would really love to know if someone can relate to this, or if it invoked something in you all. That will be really exciting. Because I don't know if it can be that I put too much meaning into this. Maybe what I will describe is something just normal. I don't know. I just remember maybe I opened a chat. I won't be able to read it though while I'm talking. Okay, so about this experience, I think in order to understand it, let me just explain a little bit about me. I don't know if you know the Myers-Briggs personality test. It's a series of questions that classifies your personality into 1 out of 16 groups. And if I do that, I always get int JA, which is also called the assertive architect. And that is one of the rarest types of personalities. People of that type are described as a combination of visionaries and pragmatic thinkers. They are analytic, strategic, curious, and independent and autonomous, but they are also introverted and sometimes just think too much. They are sometimes a bit over-rational, which can be a hindrance in cases you just have to make some emotional decisions. Emotional expression from int JA people is somewhat limited, and that pretty much, yeah, it pretty much applies to me. So I'm also an engineer. I like to create things. I like to envision things and make them come to life. To me, this is a kind of self-expression, like maybe just artwork, but I do like to design technical things, and I need freedom in order to do that. So freedom is a very important thing to me. I've learned that in the last years. I also always try to stay emotionally controlled and also distanced, which I usually succeed in. So it's particularly hard usually to make me cry, especially out in public, because for some reason I have that innate belief that it's bad or it's weak to cry out in public. I know it's stupid, but you know, it's as a male, you or having a male body, you are getting told that all the time, and men don't cry and so on and all that shit. Well, that's just how it is. Spirituality is very much driven by experience. So I take much notice nowadays to unusual states of consciousness or emotional states, and that is important when it comes to this. So how to describe that, which I called inner force, or I also call it the feeling, but I'm not even sure if it is a feeling. It is also some kind of emotional energy field, maybe inside me, a mental state. It sometimes feels as if it were a place or a portal to another mental area. I even speculated that it might indicate a trauma, but I don't think it is. So when I had it at the occasion I will describe in just a minute, I described it to myself as an emotional area in my psyche that I cannot enter because it would break me, but still I want to enter. So it just feels like flying around the fire as a bug during the night. So you know that you want to go into there because it's super fascinating, but you also know that it will burn you. So I'm just flying around that bright light, trying to get as close as possible. I had this multiple times, also years before, without noticing it too much. But most strongly, I had it at this year's fursuit walk at Eurofurence. And let me just post one or two pictures from that so that you can get an idea how it looked like, if Discord allows me. Hang on. Is that into there? Yes. There you go. So you see, this is a very colorful event. Quite a lot of furries walking there in their beautiful fursuits. So nice to see, so many colors. And it's meant to be a fun event, of course, yeah. So they are just presenting themselves, and you know, tiger, yes, and people taking pictures, and just being cheerful, yeah. So that's what it's meant to be like, yeah. And I was just there to look at all the nice costumes and catch the atmosphere, and I was really looking forward to it. But well, sometimes things turn out otherwise. So while everybody else saw colorful people and friendly people just celebrating, I was seeing beings who live themselves, who are free without any human society constraints, just living the moment. And I was seeing unbound creativity, vast creativity. If you think about how many hours and how much dedication goes into just one single fursuit, that is just incredible. And that was what I saw. To me, this was a celebration of self-expression, of living oneself. And for some strange reason, that made me fall onto my knees. And I started crying. And I don't know why. I don't know what happened to me. I told you, I'm usually hard pushed to cry out in public. And I didn't want to cry. If somebody else would have observed that, well, I think they didn't because they were looking at the furries, but they would have said, hey, why is this guy breaking out in tears all of a sudden? This is meant to be fun. Is everything all right with them? Do they have a problem? So I couldn't look at that anymore. My eyes were so full of water, I had to step away. I had to look somewhere else. And I just had to sit down, get a grip on myself. Because I wasn't there to cry. You know, I just wanted to view these costumes and wanted to have some fun. So I told that one or two people, I think, and they told me that, well, you were just touched to the heart. And yes, I was. There's no doubt about it. I was deeply touched. But does it explain what happened? This is totally untypical for me. And why? Why did it touch me so deeply? It's pretty hard to actually truly explain how fierce a feeling that is. Let me try to tell you a small story in order to make that more clear. And just allow me to post a link inside the chat toward a link to Deviant Art. Okay, this is actually from a web comic done by a really great artist called Libertades. I really love it. This is brilliant. I highly recommend it. And this one page on the top, it shows a brilliant city and dragons are flying around because this is their home, and everything is harmonious and unlimited and so on. Yeah. So this is just to maybe visualize a bit what I will explain you right now in the story. So I just have to put in front, this story isn't meant to describe my home world so much. I just want to make you understand my feeling better. So imagine you live in paradise. And I don't mean a stereotypical paradise like it's described in a book somewhere. I mean a place that is meant just for you, that is made for you. The most beautiful place you can ever imagine. In my case, it's a shiny place. It's bright, everything sparkles, and most important, everything is limitless. Creation, freedom, all unbound. You can be everything you ever wanted to be. Do everything you ever wanted. You are not judged. It's unconditional and boundless, unbound variety, unbound colorfulness. You can draw any color, you can have any opinion, you can build anything as crazy as it may be. Even from a human view, it might be rejectable. There is no judgment. It's limitless self-expression. As long as you add some colors to this utterly vibrant world, it's all right. All the other beings will cheer at you for doing that. And all the other beings who live there strive for creation or growth. And together you will build the most brilliant cathedrals, compose the most beautiful symphonies, do artwork like you've never seen on this earth. It is a perfect place. Maybe now you can imagine how it would look like for you. And now imagine that one beautiful day you have a crazy idea. You've heard of this one place that is much, much, much less beautiful. It's like a war zone. And that place is called Earth. And for some reason, you get the crazy idea that you want to go there. Maybe you just want to see if you can make it there. Maybe you want to help a friend. Maybe you want to learn something new. So you go to that war zone. And nothing is shiny there. Not at all as it is in your paradise. Everything is dark and grey. And over the years, you get used to the darkness. You make your way through agony and suffering and everything we all know about. And then, one beautiful day again, you've made it. You've lived your whole life and you return to your paradise. But your eyes are no longer used to the light. For they have only seen darkness, just for decades. They are no longer used to the sheer beauty of your paradise. So you are overwhelmed, you are blinded by the light. You cannot take it. What you see is so incredibly brilliant, so unbearably beautiful, that you cannot help but fall onto your knees. And in that one moment of awe and admiration, when you realize that this is what you came from and that you almost forgot, you cannot help but burst into tears. That is how it felt like. I cannot explain it better. Do you understand it better now? Do you understand maybe now why I think that this is more than just being touched by something? It's a strange mix of joy and sadness. You are cheerful because you are back. But also you think to yourselves, how in the world could I ever forget this? All this suffering I've made through on earth. And this paradise, this world, was just around the corner. Bittersweet, yeah, that's how it is. Whew. So this gave me quite a lot of thought for days. So what I've told you just now, the story, it is actually what came out in the end. And while I was thinking about this, I broke out into tears multiple times. Also when I was back home. And actually after the fursuit walk, it was enough to just take a look at furries walking around in the convention center. And it brought me to tears again, all day. And when I was at home and also during the con, I was just wondering, what is this? How the heck should I call it? There is a few things notable about this. First of all, this feeling, it doesn't come from the outside. No, the furries, I'm pretty much sure that they didn't feel this. They just were cheerful. They just had a good time, but it triggered that feeling within me. So this feeling is somewhere within. And to be honest, this is on the one side totally fascinating, and I want to go into there. I want to know more about it, but on the other side, it's also terrifying because I told you, I'm usually trying to not cry in public. I'm usually trying to be emotionally distanced. But this feeling is so fierce that it breaks easily through all my barriers, through all control levels, whatever there is. It doesn't so much break through them as it just obliterates them. That's how strong it is. As soon as it is triggered, I cannot do anything against it. And that is something that is also described by C.G. Jung, my favorite psychologist, as giving up your ego-driven, your I-driven tendency to control stuff. Yeah, so it is something that is in the psyche, that is found by the ego I. So yeah, and I now realizes that this is something it cannot control, and that is just terrifying. So I think the feeling is pretty close to my true self. There's also another reason, but I will tell you in a minute. Yeah, also another thing that just added up to it all is that one of the fairies gave me a fortune cookie at that occasion, and it said, "You can only see things clearly with your heart." So that famous quote from The Little Prince, you know. And I tell you, I had a look at fortune cookie spells, and I have to say that there is hardly anyone that hits the nail on the head so much like this one. You can only see things clearly with your heart. And gosh, I did. So I think something spiritual was going on here. The setting was perfect, and it is as if it was meant for me to have that experience. It's hard to get there otherwise. And also it's a nice example of experiential spirituality. So a feeling that just overcomes you, that is just there and exists and has profound meaning, and there's no doubt about it, but you struggle to understand it because it's beyond anything you experience in daily life. That's what I'm always looking for, actually. Yeah. I've told you that it's not the only time I had it. I had the same feeling after the European Dragonkin meeting in Hanover. So by now I was already back home, sitting on my computer and just thinking about the good time we had. And suddenly I felt insanely grateful, thankful that I had the honor to do this, to organize this meeting, to help dragons come together and be themselves, even if it only was for one weekend, to remove any barriers that would keep them from doing so. I felt deeply, deeply honored that I was allowed to do this. That is actually what happened. And that invoked the same feeling. And another time this year, it happened in a dream. And that actually shows again that I don't need to partake in activity to do it. It's enough to just observe, and sometimes it's enough to simply imagine. So it can be invoked by myself. Otherwise, it wouldn't have occurred in a dream. But it's not easy to invoke it in a strong way, like back at Eurofurence. Also, it doesn't work when I just look at humans celebrating, because that is too limiting. I consider human a limitation in itself. Yeah. Whenever I see humans, I societal constraints, they have to behave in a certain way. They cannot actually live freely, at least in my eyes. Yeah, so that it doesn't work that way. Yeah, let's see, what else do I have to say? Yeah, that feeling, as I said, I think it's quite close to the core of myself. And it also relates to my panel from last summit on individuation. When the self emerges into the conscious, it's usually a struggle for the I, because the I feels threatened and it needs to sacrifice something. In this case, it needs to sacrifice control when approaching the self. The last panel said selfish claims need to be sacrificed by the ego or the I in order to gain a greater sense of self. And I think this is what's happening here. And then, I didn't mention yet, when I was preparing this panel yesterday, I noticed something new. That feeling is very much akin to homesickness. There is some kind of longing to be at that place, to get to that place. And that is why I coined the panel, Having Found My Hearthome. I seem to be homesick. So what can be said about that home? Well, obviously it seems to be about infinite freedom, limitless creativity, perfect harmony, all of which at an insane level. And connected to that is, I think, guardianship. You may know I call myself a guardian of life, but what else is life as a concept than the pinnacle of creation? Life is a primal force, like an everlasting fire, a flower that blooms in all thinkable colors and forms. And it does die sometimes, but only to re-emerge in another form. It's really a limitless creation in some way. So I think as a guardian of life, I'm also a guardian of creation. And I feel called to remove barriers, to empower others, to be an inspiration for others, and to set them free, to at least help that. That seems to be what I am. And I'm happy to have made that realization. When I get that feeling again, I will try to come closer. And I just need to accept that I will be crying about it. Not easy. For now, the door towards that place, that Hearthome, has only opened a tiny bit, and still it blinded my eyes. So I don't think I'm ready yet for walking. It's maybe something for another day. But there's a plethora of questions open, of course. Is there a physical place for this? Maybe in another universe or in the afterlife or somewhere? I'm surely hoping for it, but to be honest, it's more about the concept and the mindset of the beings that live there than about a physical place. I believe if beings come together who strive for common creation and non-judgmental, limitless creation, they will create that place. So I think it's maybe more about the mindset than just a place that could be described in terms of landscapes and colors, and also bodies that could be described in terms of this is the color and these are the scales and so on, and language and so on. So I'm not sure. Maybe this is the reason why I always struggle to explain to others how I look like, because it's really it might just be more about a mindset than a physical look. But still, of course, the question is how is this connected to being a dragon? Is dragon only a symbol, or is it more than that? I still have this book, which is supposed to explain about dragons as ghosts of creation and destruction as well, but I don't know if it does. Maybe the answer is in there, maybe not. I don't know. And finally, I also feel called to transport this attitude of creation into real life. And I have a feeling that this will influence me for years to come. I also feel called to tell a story. So this is what happens today. All right, perfect. We are at half an hour, so we have plenty of time to discuss. So because I'm really interested in your feedback, did I make it all sense? If no, please ask. Now's the time. I mean, if I did make sense, however, how did you feel about it? Am I being crazy, or did I maybe invoke something in you? What is it? Did you maybe experience something similar? Maybe you cannot answer right now. That's totally understandable. It needs some time to process. It cost me some time as well. So don't worry. If you get an idea later, please don't hesitate to ping me or DM me at any time. I want to know. If you're watching this after the summit on YouTube or anywhere and you want to tell me something, don't hesitate to come back to me. I need to know this. And with that, I would like to open the stage for everybody. And it's good. I can see the stage and the chat. So I will read through the chat and see if there's any questions there. And if someone comes up to the stage, please just start talking and interrupt me.
Understandable. You made sense to my being, though. No need to worry about that.
I'm happy.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that you had these experiences, and I honestly think it's so interesting how in these human lives we can experience such mysterious, deep, and thought-invoking feelings. I think this kind of mystery really adds a lot of spice to life.
That reminds me of how the reaction of my spirit guides was when I found out about it. When I found out that this must be related to my Hearthome, they were cheering. This is, I don't know if it's valid, but I just felt them cheering. Yeah. So also they were telling me that I am to experience this through this life and through this reality.
Understandable.
Okay, now I think I found the beginning of the actual chat that is relevant.
Yeah.
Oh, Alter Reality panel that is coming up for the next summit. Maybe, great. Touches on the stuff also. Interesting. Oh, well, that is a good point. That's here, Wonderlight. You say that you can experience life as you were in this paradise here on Earth. Yes, but to be honest, I don't know how to experience that and still work as a being in human society. I don't know how. I couldn't. I mean, first of all, I will start crying. I mean, it's just difficult to operate when you're just crying all the time. And then it's wow, it's just so overwhelming, you know. I just don't know how to bring that into this reality. Well, maybe it can be done. I don't know. Yeah. Yes, Akir, I think that humans can do it. But usually they are, as I mean, I would argue that most people um, would just start crying and don't know what happened to them, and they might just be content um, with the statement that they were touched to the heart and maybe not actually ask why and what it's about and so on. So I mean that is another reason why I actually want to bring that message out there, because I think that many people will have experienced something like that, and they might just not have realized what it is. So it is just a proposal from my side what it could be about. Oh, and then we have an experiential report. Yeah, it's also talking about homesickness and a place that belongs to you, and and a bittersweet feeling. Yes, 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 that is it. It can be found during meditation, I think, but it's not easy to get there actually during meditation. It's never happened to me like that. Um, it always happened in real life. I mean, I did have this feeling a couple of years ago when I was visiting another Konichi actually. That was an anime convention in my home. It's not my hometown, but it's a town very close to where I live. And seeing those people just also expressing themselves in such colorful costumes and yeah, costumes of anime characters, and recognizing how much effort went into that, it evoked just the same feeling. But back that time, I did not pay as much attention. I did not try to explain that. Yeah, so that's why I actually believe that many people will do that, because I was the same just a few years ago. Yeah. Nikki asks, is this metaphysical place to describe the heart home though? Yeah, I'm not sure. It's just an idea. According to the coiner, a heart home is a real or fictional place. A real or fictional place. Yeah, then the term doesn't really fit. You're right. I didn't look up the definition of heart home before this panel. It just came to my mind. Oh, there is, yes, the Ultra Reality essay. I'm not sure. Did I read it already? Is it the one that is published on your website? Yeah, but please point me to it. It sounds interesting. Choose to believe. Yeah. That is a fascinating topic. Oh, we need to talk about it. Yeah. Maybe in the voice chat afterwards or something. Or maybe Wonderlight, if you want to tell something about it, you feel free to come on stage. I mean, this is what this is for.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first half of the presentation. Oh no. Is it kind of like a tulpa thought form? No, I don't think so. A tulpa is a creature that is created, but I'm not talking about a creature or a being. Develop a reality for yourself that becomes real. Not really. I mean, it's more like I just discovered some emotional area within me. It's not so much. Okay, well, of course it is related to reality, yeah. Because reality is just, to me, reality is just a representation of what is within. But this is not about reality shifting or something. Okay, don't see any questions anymore. Anyone wants to come to stage? We have quite a lot of panels this year where people are invited to speak, yeah. Oh yeah, please come on stage.
Beep.
There we go.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna, just to keep it from becoming a huge thing in my own panel, because it might not be very related, I'm gonna talk about our awakening.
Sure.
Because it's going to lead into the whole hearth home thing for me. But it's not, it was very unusual. So I was 7 years old. This is 1983, winter of 1983. Um, yep. And I was going to school. And well, some parts about me at that time is that I had this calculator watch. Believe me, this is relevant. That I would wear to and from school because I just like technology and stuff. And I was walking to school one day. It was snowing, and I was leaving tracks in the snow. And where I awakened, there's a path between my house and Linden Street School, which was a little bit down the road. And it went over this wooded forest area. And while I was walking over there, I felt something punch me in the stomach. I had no idea what it was. There was absolutely no one else around. It was just me. But I was looking around trying to figure out did somebody throw a rock at me, in a snowball or something, but there was nobody around. And when I looked at my watch, I saw that my watch had entirely stopped working. Like, it was dead. It never worked again. And I had looked behind me as well and saw that my tracks in the snow had been snowed over. I mean, you could still see there was tracks there, but they had been filled up by snow in that time. I had no idea what happened, so I just continued to school and found out when I got to school I was an hour late. I was also soaked to the bone from the snow and it basically having melted, and I was just soaked to the bone. So they had to bring me to the school nurse to get undressed and have my clothing all dried out and everything in one of their dryers. And when I went to the school nurse, I saw fairy wings on the school nurse, clear as crystal, glowing, and like I almost spoke out about it and what do you call it, like freaked out about it. But then it was like just something told me, you cannot say a word about this. You absolutely cannot. So I let it happen, or what do you call it, was sitting there, and the lunch lady came in. She also had fairy wings. And she brought me a bowl of tomato soup and grilled cheese. And as I was wondering about that, those were the only two people in the school that I saw had these wings. And after that, I started having different experiences. And that was about the time I realized that I don't know how to describe this, that I had that my head was no longer alone. That's how I'm going to put it. That my head was no longer alone. There was me. There was another. I didn't know the species of everybody in that were in here within me, but I knew at that time that there was three. I would know later learn figure out names and stuff, and the original three were me, who I went as Loxorian at the time, but found my even truer name later. And then there was Mermy, who I couldn't make any sense of at that time. So those were my primary awakening events. And I also had this dream later on that there were these beings that were basically, how would I put it? Anthropomorphized entropy. They would touch not me, but I saw them in the dream touching things, and whenever they touched those things would be unmade. No, people would no longer If they touched it, it no longer existed. No, people would not even have memories of these things. So I was like, what are these things? I spent probably had that dream 4 or 5 more times, but I also started having dreams of me. I mean, I came with, by the time I was 9 years old, which is 2 years later, I had recognized I'm not human. I mean, um, this world is like an alien world to me. Um, I'm having memories of this other world, and here's where we get to Hearthome.
Right.
This other world was, you could not see the sky because of the trees that were above your head. Everything was bioluminescent. Always, like if you, I mean, you could. It was dark because you couldn't see, but it was also light with different colors because of glowing mushrooms, glowing plants, and people had just molded the trees, grew the trees, molded them so that you could live in these things. And many of them, a lot of them had fairy wings and antenna, and that's a common theme. What you're going to find, that's a common theme with other people in this system. I think we share this place in common, but the place, it was like a forest planet is the best way that I could put it, where where technology, they had technology, but they also had magic, and they combined them so that they didn't have to screw with the world in order to develop technology. They did not sacrifice the world to their own technological growth. Everything fit in, and beings lived in the trees, and the trees supported their life, like just like the birds go out and nest in the trees. It's like a super hyper civilized version of that. And it's like, eventually, I was talking about that, and my grandmother started telling me about fairy stuff. Now, my grandmother, her mother had came here straight from Ireland in the 1900s, emigrated here in the 1900s. And she had raised her, um, daughter to have a certain amount of respect for the fairies, although my father was all like, oh no, she's a good Christian. No, that's not the word to call it, Grandma Kelly that I knew. So, she started telling me about fairy stuff in our heritage, and filling me in on what they were like. And eventually, I was never I mean, we talked about fairies in our family line and how she suspected that I had, that it basically skipped a generation and I had become the next fairy or whatever. But I never got too deeply into other people who were in here. At that point, I was trying to, and I never got to tell. My grandmother died before I got to tell her deeply into what I felt and what I saw. So that's a regret of mine. But that place is like, I feel how the Fae live. They live with such an integration with nature that their technology could be hundreds of thousands of years ahead of ours, and yet none of this stuff actually is a harm to nature or anything. And I almost feel like when you were describing yours, that you were talking about a nature integrated world, one that simply did not make the sacrifices other worlds do to, like this one, to maximize progress at all other expense. Like you lose, like this world has lost things like the time to self-reflect. You don't get that anymore. You don't, and this world, I'm going to say that this world used to be like that. I'm talking too much about. I think I might be going overboard, but I remember this world being like that when my spirit arrived here. This world was a pure paradise. Well, but I mean, I would talk all about it, right down to the last details. I'm just wondering how crazy you guys are going to think I am, because I have a, what do you call it, line of past life memories that can go back further than I can measure. So I remember that, like, yeah, I remember a time when foxes had not emerged yet. Cats and dogs were new, and foxes were going to come from those, but it was a period after the dinosaurs died, and now where there was fey life running right alongside mammal life at that time. And this was considered a paradise. This world was considered a fresh new paradise.
I also feel you on being an old soul. Like Lunath is extremely ancient, older than this universe. She saw everything that happened in this universe, and she'll be here long after. She'll be watching the universe long after this human body is gone. In my Jaguar life, I also lived through some of the most ancient periods of Mesoamerica. My earliest memories of my Jaguar life were of seeing either the Olmec Olmec civilization or the ancient Maya civilization thrive at the very beginning. So,
Okay, this is a question from Alina. Do you remember a temple in Peru that was basically a fox temple?
I don't think so. I have very few memories of this Jaguar life.
Okay.
And most of what I do remember is often gained in ceremony. And I believe when this Jaguar life first lived before she became a spirit, I think she only lived in the Yucatan Peninsula. So she didn't wander much outside of there.
Yeah. From that time period where what Alina's talking about, there was a temple of the fox, and she was part of that. But at that time, Peru was not Peru. So I just was wondering if you had, because I don't meet that many people with Mesoamerican memories. I don't even know why I should have them. This body came up from Ireland, and I'm almost 100% Irish. I have like some French, 12.5% French. So that's not the culture this body's from. Yet we have distinct memories of that one temple. It was basically a place where agriculture was being introduced.
I see.
But mostly I wanted to talk about that one place that, I mean, I know of a couple worlds that that we come from, but I don't think that place is any of those worlds. That place is some place that we all came in. Everybody in my system came from at some point, but we don't have a name for it. The biggest thing is that I mean, there are lots of hay there. There's a sky. When it rains, it takes 10 minutes for the rain to make it from the tops of the trees to the ground because there's that much leaf cover. And like I said, there's all all of our light comes from bioluminescence. And everybody's living underneath the trees. When it rains, it just rains. We're not necessarily inside buildings or anything. We can go inside the trees if we want to shelter away from the rain. But I mean, I don't know why humans started sheltering away from the rain in the first place. It's just water.
I feel that.
Wow. I love to hear these stories. So thanks so much for sharing.
Welcome.
You know, I always try to understand what people have experienced. It's not my standard assumption at all that there is some madness in there. I mean, yeah, after all, everybody's a bit mad. Isn't that the case? So I've heard that so often. This, especially that initial awakening story you told about. I've heard experiences like that so often in spiritual channels on YouTube and also from other people that it's just hard to believe that there is nothing beyond this reality. I'm convinced that there is something, and I mean, if you have experienced something like that, you cannot just shove it away. Yeah, so that's the kind of spiritual experience I have been talking about as well. Some of these people, of course, they go and write books about it and they make a business about it. But and in that case, I'm always a bit skeptical. Hey, they can tell you a lot, but yeah, what of it is actually valid and what isn't? But some of people like you, I suppose, they don't do that. Right? I don't know. Have you written a book about it? I don't know it.
I've written about it, but I've never written a book. I'd like to write a book, but if I ever wrote a book, it's going to be about basically the nature of the universe, like like it being a six-dimensional thing that also includes choices and probabilities, so that everything that you can think of and even stuff you can't think of actually occurs. You never get paradoxes, and you can never go back in time and change anything, just because if you go back in time and change something, you're on a new timeline that you just created yourself. But
Yeah.
all possibilities occur, and you're like one point experiencing a certain set of possibilities, that all the probabilities and choices that you've made brought you to that point. And one of the ways that magic would work is that you just have possibilities where you could turn into a dragon, and you just have to figure out how to fly up to that possibility. Now, I don't have that answer yet. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But that's my personal belief in how the universe is actually laid out. And that's what I would actually want to write about. I think that my experiences, I think everybody has experiences like that. And because the universe, the multiverse itself is so infinite, it's not easy to tell what you're remembering something from, because there could be a universe where any of this stuff happened. Because there's just simply, in a universe where all possibilities can occur, then all possibilities do occur. So you may just be experiencing a memory in the same multiverse. Can't call it a universe later. But within that multiverse where everything's happening, you may have come from this point. Now you're on that point. You could still remember this other point. That other point still exists. You could project yourself back over to that point, but you're also stuck on your physical body is stuck in a single point temporal instance, where you're going forward in time, and your choices and the probabilities that act on you are determining where your physical body ends up. But where your mind ends up, that's all. I mean, you can astrally project. That's a thing, but it's like projecting to like someplace else on this world harder than simply going to that place that is out there in the multiverse. And I think a lot of people's heart homes come from a memory of a place you used to be. And that place still exists. And if you remember it, and if being there had such a emotional impression on you that you break down and cry, that's just it. You're acting on a memory. And people cry about their memories. I mean, I do sometimes. Um, but I mean, I don't think those things aren't real. I think those places do exist and that they're actually important.
I would agree. I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around, but well, I just at the moment I'm thinking about this concept of having a memory, because I also think that time is is not relevant outside of this reality or outside of a universe. So it's not. I maybe wouldn't call it a memory, but it's hard to find another term. I mean, this is not something. What I seem to remember, quote unquote, is not something that happened earlier, because time is irrelevant. But it's here. It's just here right now. It's maybe more um, a kind of look out the window of this reality into another, how should I call it, dimension, emotional state. I'm struggling to find words.
That's my
That's
belief.
how I would describe it.
Correct?
Yeah, just another thought, but I think I forgot it.
Understandable.
Um,
I feel that.
I believe that those places actually exist. That they are existent on the sides, above, down, in all of those directions. This reality, those possibilities that you may have existed in before, they're still out there. And I mean, like I said earlier, imagination and meditation is just one step away from astral projection, taking your spirit and going there and
yeah, I mean,
interacting with the things in spirit.
what you mentioned is, I've heard part of it from others who are also spiritual. So partly it's known concepts. Um, Partly I don't fully understand yet. I mean, there's a plethora of questions, of course, but
I
uh,
tried to.
yeah, maybe not the time. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to explain. I mean, I could go ahead and explain how I see my universe working, but what I wanted to mention, um, I I am of the opinion that every every one of us has an own universe that has its own working. And people always search for the one ultimate truth that is valid for everybody and
That's
just
I,
unshakably true. I don't think that ultimate truth exists, especially not in the spiritual. So what if I explain about my universe, and then it is just only a proposal. It's just, I don't know if it's valid for anybody else, and that's
mm-hmm,
what I always stress. Yeah. So and this is also how I see your explanation. I mean, you describe how things work for you, but it doesn't mean that they work the same way for me or for anybody else. I
Yep.
can just only take it as an inspiration and
Yeah, and
just
that's
see
really all
what's
it's
in
meant
it.
for. I tried to teach
Yeah,
people
yeah.
about things like astral projection back in the 90s and the early 2000s, and it's like, one, I got into too many arguments with people who said their way was the way. I don't believe in a single way because I believe in a universe where all possibilities occur. So, for somebody else, they may come from a whole different thing that's not incompatible with what I think when it comes to how the multiverse works. It's just um, things work different for everybody. I think when I stopped trying to teach about this stuff, I basically said everybody's path is their own. I can try to help you discover how to find a path, but I cannot give you a path. You need when you step into the spiritual realm, you have began a commitment to your own path in the sense that you're going to be discovering the things that make your make sense to you, make sense to your own memory of who you are and who you want to become, and nobody else can help you with that part. They can only tell you what theirs is. Like you said, be an inspiration. But I mean, a lot of like I'm starting a coven next year here in Denver, and one of its precepts is that a we don't have a set way that we think magic works. I believe that magic is probability tweaking, but
Mhm.
that does not. Oh, I'll explain that later. But I also believe that anybody can do magic any way they want, and we're going to accept them in this coven because um, us sharing that knowledge with each other just increases possibility. Because I mean, things may not work the same way, but you may still get useful things out of it. I think that's one of the reasons why we should gather and talk to each other and have things like this because um, sharing experiences only enhances your possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, make me look forward to your panel later today.
I
But
think my
I
panel's going
don't
to
want
go
to.
3 hours now because now I've
Yeah.
collected a whole bunch of stuff to talk about.
All good. No need to worry.
Good. I think I have a space of 3 hours to work there. And since I'm now on my vacation, I don't have to worry about staying up late.
Understandable.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I don't actually want to break it, but just a proposal. Since we are beyond the hour, how about we officially close this panel and move on to the voice chat?
That sounds good to my being.
Okay, let's do that. And this way also Akil can stop the recording. Just one last point again. If you want to tell me something, come back to me. Feel free to PM me at any time. Uh, that's greatly appreciated. So let's make it official. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening. And
Thank you all for letting me
uh,
talk,
maybe gave you inspiration. And see
especially
you
because,
later at the summit.
yep, I could talk over here.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting, Amber.
You're welcome.
And thank you for sharing your experiences, Risley.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for letting me talk about them again.
Yeah.
It's just a
Sure.
thing where I was going to have that conversation before my panel at some point because if I make it part of my panel, we're not going to get it to everything.
Understandable.
So
Okay.
thank you
See
for
you.
the time to do that too, and the right
Yeah.
panel to do that in.
See you all in voice chat.